Hey everybody, Richard here with CRG Games, and I know it's been a little while, but I've got another Commander deck for you. This is one I've been playing here recently, probably for the last month or two. It's not anything crazy, but it is Rakdos, Lord of Riots, and it can get crazy. So we're going to dive into this, and I'll show you what makes it work. All right, so we're going to start off with creatures. Now, this deck has 40 creatures, including the commander, so we'll run through those real quick. I will start out by saying this deck is not optimized. It is not, completely blinged out yet. It's kind of something I just put together. I actually had to borrow the commander. This is the Commander Legends foil etched version. I had to borrow that from my buddy because I couldn't find a copy. But I've got some nice things in here, some flashy things, and I will have the price and the deck list, of course, in the description. So let's get into it. Starting off, we've got Hidetsugu, Devouring Chaos. This is Kamigawa Neon Dynasty. And we've got a Thermo Alchemist. And the idea behind these creatures is, one, I want some big stompies that do cool things, and also some flyers, right? This is a kind of a demon-based deck, so I tried to pick demons. And of course, it is Rakdos, so everything's going to be red and black. So there's going to be some sacrifice elements, some things that cause damage, and to you and the other players. But they all work towards the goal of getting the creatures out pretty cheaply. So that's the goal here. So we've got Thermo Alchemist, which you can tap to deal 1 damage to each opponent. And I need to go back real quick and just let you know. So Rakdos, Lord of Riots, what he says is you can't cast this spell unless an opponent lost life this turn. So that's the key thing here. You have to ping somebody for at least 1. He's got Flying and Trample. He's a 6/6, so it is strong. And creature spells you cast cost 1 colorless less for each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Now, that is cumulative. So, for example, if you have 4 opponents or 3 opponents and you ping them each for 1, and they take 3 total damage, now your creatures cost 3 less. So that can work really, really well in your favor when you've got pretty expensive cards. So there are expensive creatures in this deck, but it's not really a big issue. We've got Raphael, Fiendish Savior. This is from Baldur's Gate. Other demons, devils, imps, and tieflings you control get +1/+1 have lifelink. So you are going to be pinging for a lot of damage. You are going to take some of that damage, and you need a little bit of a way to get some of that back. We've got Void Winnower. There are Eldrazi's in this deck. That's part of it because they take colorless mana. It's nice to be able to cheat these guys out. We've got Endless One, Plague Crafter. This is from the new Jumpstart. And this is the anime version of it. We've got Ulamog, the Infinite Gyre. You have to have the Ulamogs. Terror of the Peaks. Terror of the Peaks really is kind of an auto-include in just about everything, just because of the way that it deals damage. Spells your opponents cast that target Terror of the Peaks cost an additional 3 life to cast. So, if you have Terror out, someone targets it, they take the 3 life, then you can play your commander. And its second ability takes effect. They will cost 1 less for each 1 life, so immediately that's 3 less. I believe I'm thinking about that correctly. We got Perforos, God of the Forge. He can be a good defender. We got a Plague Spitter, 1 damage to each creature and each player for 3 mana. We got a Graveyard Trespasser. We've got Nighthawk Scavenger. Again, this is for a little bit of that lifelink, and it'll get rid of stuff because of the Death Touch. We got Pathrazor of Ulamog. This is a DCI promo. Steel Hellkite. Always a good one. Archetype of Aggression. I do like this one. Creatures you control have trample. It's important that you're actually damaging your opponents, so giving your creatures trample really helps towards that goal. We've got the Varan, Executioner Thane. Each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. We got Siege Zombie. Each opponent loses 1 life. That's a great one. It that Betrays. Annihilator is one of those things that you really should rule 0 it. I like Annihilator. using it. I don't like it being used against me, of course, because it can make it really unfun, but it is part of the game, and it is fair, fair use. You've got an Oblivion Sower here. Got a Desolation Twin. It doesn't really have any great effects, but getting to have 2 of them out on the field is a really nice thing, especially if you can deal 10 damage and get it out for free. You've got Harsh Mentor. This will help you do a little more damage as well. War Elemental. When it comes into play, sack it unless an opponent was dealt damage this turn. Whenever damage is dealt to an opponent, put that many 1/1 counters on War Elemental. So there are some other things in this deck that really synergize with this card. I mean, everything does because it does damage. But there's another card in here that really, really works with this. Then we've got Balor, Great Dragon. Great Demon. It kind of looks like a dragon. We've got Ancestral Statue. I put this in here because I was hoping for a way to abuse this card. I haven't found it yet. I'm sure there's a way I can do something with it, but I haven't found it just yet. Burnished Heart. You can cast this and bounce it infinitely with Rakdos' ability. But like I said, I just haven't figured out what the benefit of that is yet. We got a nice Goldhound here, First Strike and Menace. We got Malignus. I like this one. It's not really an expensive card, but its power and toughness for each equal to half the highest life total among your opponents rounded up. Damage that would be dealt by Malignus can't be prevented. It's just cool. And it could be a really big stompy really early. We've got Braids. Braids is a great card. Nice Florian here. I would have had the fancy version, but I couldn't find it. Got a nice Kozilek, Double Masters 2022. Gives you a little card draw. We got Orcus, Prince of Death. And, of course, the classic Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger. The exiling 2 permanents is always a great effect to have. He costs 10, but with Rakdos' ability, it can quickly cost 0. We got Lord of the Forsaken. And Gikshin Puppeteer. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, each opponent loses 2 life and you gain 2 life. And again, you got to keep in mind it's the cumulative life lost that's really doing the work here. Solemn Simulacrum for some card draw. We got Artisan of Kozilek. Get some stuff back. And Annihilator. We got Misery's Shadow. Virtus the Veiled. I really like this one. It's just kind of a cool card. This is a pre-release promo for 2018. This is Battle Bond. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, that player loses half their life rounded up. Rakdos, Lord of Riots. For each 1 life your opponents have lost this turn. Basically, if you can get a bunch of stuff in your hand, you can start dropping it. And then we've got Cryptborn Horror. This card has the potential to come out really, really big. Enters the battlefield with X 1/1 counters on it, where X is a total life lost by your opponents this turn. Now let me show you the enchantments, what I'm really talking about here. So Black Market Connections, this isn't it. This is a great card, a lot of utility. And now for any black deck, for me, this is an auto-include. Descent into Avernus. Now I've said it before. This is one of my all-time favorites, absolute favorite cards in Magic the Gathering as a game, the whole thing. At the beginning of your upkeep, put 2 Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. Then each player creates X treasure tokens, and Descent into Avernus deals X damage to each player, where X is the number of Descent counters on Descent into Avernus. There's a lot of things that you can do with this. For one, it's something that is a little bit of a help to everybody, but also a little bit of a burden, right? They're going to create the treasure tokens, which is helpful, but they're also going to take life. So it tends to stay on the board for a good while because nobody really wants to get rid of it early. You can pay a little bit of life for some treasure. That's okay. But it's that cumulative damage that Rakdos really feeds off of. And then when you have everybody taking a bunch of damage, of course, Cryptborn Horror for 3 mana can come out and be really big. Descent into Avernus. I love this card. I have many copies of this card in the foil extended art version. Absolutely love it. And I'll probably keep buying them just because it's cool. All right, so we got some instant cards in here. These are generally just going to be for damage. You got Play with Fire, 2 damage to any target. Deadly Dispute. one of the all-time greats as far as commons go. Village Rites, sack a creature, draw 2 cards. You got to have card draw. Dark Writ, this is going to help you. If you can't seem to get Rakdos out, Dark Writ is a surefire way to get some extra mana. Then we got Dismember. This is an absolutely fantastic card as well for removal. Pyretic Ritual. This is along the same lines as Dark Ritual there for getting mana. And then a Lightning Bolt. A quick 3 damage. That, for 1 mana, can make what's in your hand cost 3 colorless less. And it can get you just right over the edge to get your creatures out on the board. All right, so we've got a Cut and Ribbons sorcery. This is the Secret Lair of Mischief. I love the cards that came in that set. A Chain Lightning, 3 damage to target creature or player. Then that player or that creature's controller may pay 2. If they do, he or she may copy the spell and choose a new target for that copy. This is another one of those little bit of, sneaky things to get people to take a bunch of damage. You might take some as well. That's okay, because you can just pay 2 and then, send it right back at somebody else. So this is kind of a fun card, really. Everybody gets to send it around the table and kind of, get the revenge out on everybody else. And then we got a Flame Rift, 4 damage to each player. This is really one of the keys to getting your Eldrazi's out. If you have 3 people and you play Flame Rift, now there's 4, 8, 12 damage. Now you can basically cast everything, all the Eldrazi's in your hand for free, if you can get them. Flame Rift is an absolute unit in this deck. All right, Whisper Silk Cloak. You need to get things through, so you're going to have ways to do that. Whisper Silk Cloak is a way to do that. Whip of Erebos. This, if you're taking life, from Flame Rift, for example, or Descent into Avernus, you need a way to get that back. Whip of Erebos is a great way to do it. Got a Mask of Grizzlebrand, the same idea there. Swiftfoot Boots, Swifties. Got a Soul Ring, kind of a boring Soul Ring. This is Commander Collection Green, non-foil. And then you've got Elbrus, the Binding Blade. I've only ever gotten this card off like maybe once or twice. And it's always fun when you do, because he turns into Withengar, Unbound. This is a Flying, Intimidate, Trample, 13/13 chunky boy. Whenever a player loses the game, put 13/1/1 counters on it. I love this card. It does make you a target if you transform it, so just watch out. But it's cool. It's cool nonetheless. All right, so we've got non-basic lands. So these are some really important parts to this deck as well. There's really not a whole ton of rhyme or reason to them, to be honest. Just some cool things I like. Noxious Field, one of my favorites. This is actually an enchantment. It should be over there. Enchanted land has tap. This land deals 1 damage to each creature and each player. That's simple. So if somebody's got a token generator on, they keep, putting 1/1 squirrels out, or you need to do some quick damage to be able to get one of your creatures out, tap whatever land this is enchanting, and there you go. You've got 1 damage. You have to use it to this ability, though, right? So you don't get to get the mana out of it. You're tapping it to Noxious Field, so you're not going to get mana out of it, but you are going to do damage. Got Path of Ancestry. This is going to be, of course, to scry 1. You need that. Mortuary Mire, honestly, it's a cheap land, but getting to put a creature from your graveyard on the top of your library is important, especially because everybody knows that you're going to be casting things cheap, so they're going to be trying to remove all your stuff, especially things that help you out. That'll help you get them back. Nykthos, Shrine of Nyx, obviously, you want to get a lot of mana. Cliffgate. We got Ancient Tomb, always a great addition. Shizo, Death Storehouse. Unfortunately, it's not original. This is just a it's one of those mystery booster retail edition foils. Definitely a cool one though. Target legendary creature gains fear. That can help you to get Rakdos through or anything else. A nice Tainted Peak. Got Leech Ridden Swamp. Pay 1 and tap. Each opponent loses 1 life. Play this ability only if you control 2 or more black permanents. You will control 2 or more black permanents, and being able to do that 1 life helps out a ton. Got Haunted Ridge, Eye of Ugin. This probably doesn't really need to be in here, but it just gives you a little more edge to get those Eldrazi's out. We've got Crypt of Agadim, Dragon Skull Summit. It's a nice M11 foil. A Black Dragon Gate and a Blightstep Pathway. Extended art, nothing crazy, non-foil. Just a nice little pathway there. And then we've got our basics. I'll have the count in the deck list. I don't know off the top of my head how many swamps and stuff is in here. But, you know, we'll see. Nothing. I don't have any crazy basics either. I just have all the literally basics. It was like a last-minute thing when I was putting this deck together. So they're basically all Commander Legends Battle for Baldur's Gate. And then this one from, like, Unstable. Non-foil, but still cool nonetheless. So, that is Rakdos, Lord of Riots. To summarize, the goal of this deck, of course, is to get Rakdos out. You need to do some damage to your opponents. That's easy. Cast Rakdos, do a little more damage, right? You want anything. You want to get Descent into Avernus out. You want to get Flame Rift out. You know, early on in the game, if you can get, 2 black and 2 red, and you can cast Flame Rift, take a little bit of damage. You know, deal 12 damage, deal 16 damage, or whatever. And let's say you drop an Artisan, and drop an Ulamog, and drop a Kozilek. You know, your opponents are scooping at that point because you're wiping their board and you're filling your hand. You know, you get Kozilek out there and you draw 4 cards, and it has a habit of what I call accidentally going off. I've played this deck a handful of times, not a whole ton. I've had it for a couple months, but I haven't played it a ton of times. But I've played it enough to where I've accidentally did some fun stuff. I would highly recommend building a Rakdos deck. He's not expensive. You can build this deck dirt cheap. All you need is a copy of Rakdos, some cheap spells that'll ping, some cheap creatures, get a lightning bolt, get a dismember, a pyretic. You don't even need these really. Just get little things, Village Rites, Deadly Dispute. And before you know it, you'll be in, you'll be winning games and having fun. Get yourself some cheap Eldrazi's. You don't have to have the big guys from Double Masters 2022 or, Zendikar. You don't have to have the Kozileks and the Ulamogs. Get some of the cheaper ones. Anything colorless. And then just start casting. And I think you'll have a pretty fun time, because I know I have. Hope you guys enjoyed. And until next time, I'll catch you later.